Ka'alao Yahawashi Yahawashi Bahashim Rakakadash. All praise, honor, and glory go to the Most High Yahweh in the name of His Son Yahawashi. And I was getting into this lesson about stemming from Isaiah 11 and in verse 10 all the way down to verse 14. But I was doing it live, and for some reason my other piece of technology died on me, even though it said it had strength. But Ka'alao Yahawashi Yahawashi, I have this one, so I'll just do the lesson now where you can actually see the verses, and we'll just go from there. But I was getting into verse 10. I'll just read it over. It says, "The time is coming when one of Dawad's descendants will be the signal of the people of all nations to come together. They will follow his advice, and his own nation will become famous." It says, "When that day comes, Yahweh will again reach out his mighty arm and bring home his people who have survived in Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Ethiopia, Elam, Shinar, Hamath, and the land along the coast." And I was going into how we were in subjection by all these, our captivity from all these other nations, and how the Father brought us out of those subjections, and he's going to do the same in this last time through his son Yahawashi. And it goes into verse 12. "He will give a signal to the nations, and he will bring together the refuge from Judah, Yahawashi, and Israel, Yasharallah, who have been scattered all over the earth. Israel will stop being jealous of Yahawashi." And I was getting to the point where, when we go into Judah, the southern tribe, those are what we appear to be today as the darker skinned Israelites. Majority of us. The so-called African Americans, the so-called Haitians, the so-called Jamaicans, West Indians, and then the other 10 tribes, Israel, represent, who you call the indigenous people of, South America, Central America, the Native Americans, the Latinos, and a lot of them were, are more tan or light brown. But it doesn't seclude any of the 12 tribes from looking like a different nation, because we know Israel was scattered all across the world. So some are going to look like so-called Asians, some are going to look like so-called white men, some are look like so-called Arabs, some are like so-called Hamites. Yet everything is determined by your father's lineage. And this is what's happening right now. Only in the camps where you're seeing so-called Latinos and indigenous people, American Indians, click up and be in fellowship with the so-called black man, Haitians and West Indians. So we know this is the awakening that he's been talking about, yet we're talking more about when it gets to the kingdom, because this is when all of our people are going to be doing what the scriptures say. It said, Israel stopped being jealous of Yahawashi, and Yahawashi will no longer be enemy of Yasharallah. Instead, they will get together and attack the Philistines, which are the Hamites, in the west. Then they will defeat the Edomites, which is the so-called white man, the Moabites, which are the so-called Chinese, and the Ammonites, which are so-called Japanese, Koreans in the east. They will rule those people and take from them whatever they want. And this is the part where the whole world doesn't like to hear about when it comes to the scriptures, because they don't want to hear about being in subjection and having the so-called white man or the so-called Latino man or American Indians, indigenous people above them in control, as it says right here, taking from them whatever they want. That scares the whole world. That scares the whole world that the so-called black man could be the actual people of the Lord, along with the Native Americans and Latinos. And like I said, since it's not a color thing, some Israelites are going to look like the so-called white man, but the Spirit's going to resonate that they are of the nation of Israel. But just the thought of having who you put down at the bottom for so long be the actual people scares this world. So much so that, during the time after the Dark Ages, the Renaissance period, they set up and they defamed all, archaeological or paintings or history that depicted the so-called black man on top. And as kings, as royalty, as the priest, and they replaced it with, they whitewashed everything. And now we're getting to a point where these things are just being revealed more and more, to where the world is either deciding to listen to what the men of the Lord are saying, and possibly try to learn about what the scriptures are saying, to see, because the hopeful elect has to come out and be revealed as well, get sealed up. Or they're doing their damnedest to try to turn against the men of the Lord and the prophets that are bringing this out, because they don't want the inevitable, which they already know it is going to happen. Because you got to understand, this is the Most High's, Yahweh's movie. And everything that he has brought out in these prophecies and in the scriptures is going to happen. There's no, hey, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is not going to. No, it's all going to happen. And then when it all happens, we got to learn how to appreciate it. So thus, beginning of my lesson, when I said, we got to stay kingdom minded. You may not have seen it. I was doing a video live, a sit down with a video just depicting all, the beauty of this park and the wind blowing and out in the sun, but somehow my technology shut down. But I was going into how we have to stay kingdom minded. We have to be thinking about these things on a more basis. If not, then the ways of this world will tear you apart. And we all fall short. We're only pure in the eyes of Yahweh because of his son Yahawashi. And those that are grateful for that, those that are continuing to be grateful for those treasures of being his people, calling on the name, not switching, continue to love the brethren, continue to follow in line and order. Those are the ones that are going to receive that kingdom, because they put their faith totally in Yahawashi, like the Father told them to do. And that's the main commandment that we got to be doing in these last days. Because if you're doing that, then most likely you're putting the Most High Yahweh above all things, and also laying down your life for your brethren by bringing out this word and bringing out the truth. Though the world hates it, though the world doesn't want to hear about it. If you go over to the book of Isaiah 2:11, it says, "The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and Yahweh alone shall be exalted in that day." So there's going to come a day when, all these different boasts and claims that the so-called white man, the nation of Edom, and our people, the 2/3 and the heathen, where they boast about all these things in the earth that they have, or things that they're trying to accomplish, or things that they're put ahead of, the glory of the Lord, his beauty, his mercy, his wrath. All those things will not even matter anymore. And what's going to matter is Yahweh being exalted. We go to the book of Romans 15:12, it says, "And again Isaiah says, there shall be a root of Jesse, and he that shall rise to reign over the Gentiles, and him shall the Gentiles trust." And that's Yahawashi being raised up to where those that don't know they're Israelites and may look like other nations, or those that don't know they're Israelites but living as a Gentile, they're going to have to bow down, and they're going to know that, it's about Yahawashi. It's not about the things of this world and the way this Babylonian system is set up. Revelations 5:5 says, and one of the elders saith unto me, weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals thereof. And that's the time that we're waiting for. Staying kingdom minded on those times, watching to see when these seals are being broken, and when we're getting closer and closer to when he will return. Now we only have a couple more prophecies left, the main one being them instituting that MOTB to the whole world, to where everyone has to get it to either buy or sell and eat, travel, do anything on this earth, and those that resist it, even unto death, receiving the glory. Then we know that Babylon is going to be destroyed by thermonuclear fire. All the other nations that they were allied with, along with the nations that they're enemies with, are going to join together and bomb this place with their thermonuclear fire, with their missiles, those ICBM missiles. And at the same time, the hopeful elect will be delivered. I'll pray about that number. If you go over to the book of Exodus 17:15, it says, and Moses built an altar and called the name of it Yahawashi. Let's go over to look. Let's check that out. Exodus 17:15. Yahawashi, which means Yahweh is my banner. Go to the word banner in the Strong's H3071 is Yahawashi, and it says, Salakia, Yahweh is my banner, the name given by Masha to the altar which he built in the commemoration of the discomfiture of the Amalekites. So if you go over to the word Yahweh, is the 61 Salakia H5251, it's the word nace, and it says something lifted up, standard, a signal. So the standards of the Lord are going to be lifted up in that time, to where only his ways are going to matter. That's what we're going to find in the kingdom. Hebrews 4:1, it says, let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. So it's going to start with your fear of the Most High Yahweh. Those of us hopeful elect have a healthy fear of the Most High Yahweh. So much so that they're doing the work that they're called to do. They're getting their lives in order. They're purifying themselves. The women are following their husband. The children are keeping the name of Yahawashi in their mouth. The men are doing the work out of fear. Wanting to be delivered, wanting that salvation, because nobody's saved yet. And what do we have to be saved from? From that thermonuclear fire that's going to come over here in America. And, some things they can escape by traveling to different countries, but the Most High can do whatever he wants. He can put you right back over here, and have you experience this destruction. So it's best to fear him so you don't come short of that rest. You go to Isaiah 6:13, it says, but yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten, as a teal tree and as an oak whose substance is in them, when they cast their leaves, so the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. And that's talking about his elect. It talks about a tenth, like it's a portion. A portion of his people are going to be delivered, and that's his hopeful elect. It's going to be a small number compared to those that have to be destroyed of the nation of Israel, because Israel is like the sand of the sea. But the majority of our people were destined for this destruction so that they can be born in the kingdom, righteous and holy again. But only a small number will be saved. Zechariah 10:10 says, I will bring them again into the outer land of Egypt and gather them out of Assyria, and I will bring them into the land of Gilead and Lebanon and and place shall not be found for them. And, you know, you have to be spiritually entwined with the Holy Spirit to understand when he talks about these other nations and how it represents the times now. When he talks about Egypt and Assyria, he's talking about, you know, us being Gentiles, us being in captivity, us, you know, doing the ways of the heathen, you know, being stuck in these ways, in this beast system. You know, it's not talking about the actual lands. It's talking about how his people are in this captivity that they are now. Because everything about the scriptures is about prophecy. Pathros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, Hamath. And, you know, I just wanted to get into touch with that. You know, I'm really running short on time. You know, when I got thrown off with my video, I had to set this back up, so my time kind of got shortened. But the basis of the lesson today was just to keep our minds on the kingdom throughout the captivity that we're in, trying to make sure that we're staying focused on doing his will regardless of the challenges that we face, mainly being in this land where nothing is uplifting and exalting the Most High Yahweh and with the eyesight that our human eyes have. But if you have the Spirit with you, you'll see how he's working, and you see how he's doing things dramatically and quickly every day, every moment, by continuing to reveal who the so-called wicked is and continue to wake up his hopeful elect in these last days. Pray you're of that number. Pray for mercy and deliverance. And with that, just want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahawashi, Ba'Hashem, Rakak Hadash, double honors to all the apostles, elders, teachers, preachers, priests, bishops that came before me and taught me his truth, starting with the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who are the true prophets of Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahawashi. And Shalom, peace be to you, to his holy elect, which I pray him in the number of. Till next time, Yahweh willing.